learned to sort of take some of that stuff and superimpose here, but also learn our own stuff in India as to how to match different people. Because at the end of the day, if you look at it, the best co-founder might not actually be in your network. They might actually be someone who's really passionate. So we look for business people with a lot of conviction as well as passion on a particular problem statement and idea. We look for tech people who have the tech chops, but can be pretty fungible on the space or idea. We run a cohort once every 6 months. We run it twice a year for 2-3 months in Bangalore, where we get around 80 to 100 of these people. And the idea is, of course, that the way it happens is out of the 80 to 100 people, almost a third drop off literally after a month, understanding that this journey is just not for them. The remaining, the second third probably find something, but we don't believe that it's a space that is really venture capital friendly, and or we don't believe, or it's too competed. The last 1/3 is actually what we get to invest in. The advantage is, of course, that we see them for around 2-3 months, so we are able to assess them on all the parameters you need at that stage. At that stage, it's literally only the founders, which is what I have clearly realized. It's a lot of the, again, all of this is not something that you wouldn't know, but it's everything around grit. Of course, you can't assess grit in a 2-3 month window, but you can assess grit from a bunch of ref checks and what they've done in the past. What you can assess in the 2-3 month window is their agency and their ability to really iterate fast and move fast. Because at the end of the day, one of the biggest things at this stage is to how fast do you move and how fast is the right direction you move, not just how fast you move. It's not about how busy, but how busy in a direction. Third is we look for how obsessed are they about customers and building a customer first company. Fourth is ambition and audacity and just really thinking venture scale. A lot of people fall here because I think there is there is certain advantage to frugality, but if you're really going the venture capital treadmill route, you need to understand what that route is and why you need to raise capital continuously, as well as while you build a company frugality. So we look for really high ambition and wanting to change an industry, because at the end of the day, the VC industry, whether it's a platform at pre-seed or later, works on the power law and works on really the big winners. Last is clarity in thinking and clarity in communication. So these are the 5 things that are different levels that we look at. At the end of the day, we do look at the market and the idea, but that always is over and above this, right? If it is a really crappy market, but if someone is spiking on 3 or 4 of these 5, we might still bet. If someone is spiking on 2 or 3, we do look at the market being big, but that's, again, as I said, it's always secondary to this evaluation.
And I think when you started, especially during COVID and all that, and immediately after COVID, there was a huge change in the dynamics of how the VC industry worked, right, for the first couple of years. So the plans you might have put in initially as your own thesis of how you wanted to go about doing this versus there were a bunch of angels everywhere, right? I mean, there were people who were writing checks left and right. There was gray lines between Series A, pre-Series A, pre-seed, seed, I don't know what all terminologies came in, right? It was very tough in that moment to kind of figure out where exactly you fall, right? So, what was happening?
Oh, it was quite an evolution for us. I think we started thinking we'll do a 30-40 million fund. This was our first when we said we'll write 150K checks, which was 50K more than what Antler writes everywhere else. We said we will try and take 10% of a company at 150K check, and we will do largely pre-seed, but some seed also. This was our original thought. Now, of course, 2021, 22 happened, where the entire industry completely changed under our feet. There were just a variety of people writing checks super fast. People would come to us and say, I have this term sheet, you give me this, by tomorrow, it's a Sunday, by Monday, you give me an IC. We actually really didn't know how to operate that, and we went very slow. We actually, between 2021 around September and 2022 September, I think we totally wrote around 5 checks or 6 checks. Not because we were very intelligent to say that vintage is going to be crappy, but it's just that we said that we just didn't know how to operate and people were not taking our checks. So 2-3 things happened. One is we said that, okay, the market has changed reasonably fundamentally. We didn't know how long it was going to last. So we increased our fund size from 30-40 million to 75 million. We literally, sent a SEBI thing. 2 is that essentially meant that we needed more time for capital raise. We needed the likes of SIDBI and SRI and a variety of government bodies to raise such a big fund, because Mithun and me have never raised a fund before, right? It was still so we started working with an intermediary, with family offices, people that we just probably for the first fund were not looking to raise from. We were looking to raise from, we had already gotten some 10-12 unicorn founders and the likes, right? But went to family offices, so increased the fund size. we also said, okay, we're going to write checks. Some of this is very difficult to differentiate between a good founder and someone who's just starting up because it's just the romantic thing to do today. So we said we're going to have probably a higher mortality, so embedded a higher mortality, had a higher reserve ratio, increased our first check to from 150 to 250k. We did a variety of changes, and we became more and more clearer that we were only going to do pre-seed. Because our first, I would say, 10, 11, 12 checks before all this happened, it was a mix of pre-seed and seed also. And I said, after some traction and stuff, and we were very clear if we were going to get anything seed, it was probably going to be adverse selection at that point in time, because people just had too many VC options getting 1, 2, 3 million checks. So I think it helped us assess who we are, helped us become much clearer that we will not do certain things, build a huge focus on pre-seed, variety of other things. Thankfully, I think it took us more, because of that, I think it took us more time to raise the fund, and that sort of was a bit distracting, but we ended up with 160, 170 LPs. I don't know if that's what we would have wanted on day one. But I think that sort of made us clearer that we were going to be pre-seed, we were going to put the systems and processes, and now today we have two products. One is everything around individuals, which I explained, where you find your co-founder, and we take 3-4 months to make an investment decision. And if you're a team where you're just one stage ahead, you're still building your MVP, but you have found your co-founder from elsewhere because you have someone. We just assess you at pre-seed and get you to an investment decision within a month. This is rolling. This is once in 6 months. And so these are the only two things today that we do. We only invest 100% of our first check at pre-seed.
Great. I'll let maybe Mani, you can ask questions. I have a lot and fellows have a lot, but
No, first of all, Rajiv, very proud of you, what you have achieved. I think you've built a fantastic brand in a very short time. 3 years is not a very long time at all. And who knew there was a gap, right? Because you look and say it's saturated, there is, Accel with Atom or Seed or whatever it is, there is Sequoia with Surge, a large fund, there is of course YC, and there is so many other things. And how do you find a niche for yourself? I think you've been an entrepreneur at heart, even if that's in the role of a VC.
Right.
And I think you build a fantastic, when I say brand, I hesitate because it sounds like it's just marketing. Obviously it's not. You and I both know without substance there's no marketing, right? You built a fantastic brand that you should genuinely be very, very proud of, and happy to see you achieve that, right? The two questions. Sometimes the best of our journeys don't reach its potential, it fails. Even if Urban Ladder endures as a brand, it wasn't a success, right? I think most of us, sometimes when we have such a big setback, take longer to regroup and find our feet, right? And you did great on that, and that takes a certain, inner fortitude, right? So what constitutes that? Because many more founders will need to find their way. All of us as humans, by founders, right? There'll be situations, whether it's professional, personal, whatever it is, and we'll have to find our path, right? Which, unless you've gone through it, right, it's easier said than done. So what constitutes your ability to, thrive despite a setback, right? Because you gave, almost 9 years to Urban Ladder intensely, right? The second different question is, every firm and every individual has to decide for themselves what is your equation with founders, and some of that is also somewhat evolving, right? Almost anybody you interview in this industry, if you say why do you want to be a VC, they say I want to help founders, but they can't say what does that mean, what does helping founders mean, right? You may not have the operational experience to help them the moment a company scales to a certain point, or whatever, right? So what, from your point of view, both from a founder perspective, when you were at Urban Ladder, what is it that you needed that investors didn't give you? What is it that you didn't need that the investors imposed on you, right? And other side, right?
Right.
If I'm angry,
Sure.
I tell my kids, just wait till you become parents, right? So
Right.
it's like that. Right? So, you feel like, oh, it's going to be justified. When you raise your kids, you'll figure out what this is all about. So, so it's like that, right? You're on this side.
Right.
So then you see a different perspective. So these two questions.
Sure. I'll come to the first one in a bit because it's very philosophical. The second one is easier to answer. I think during the Urban Ladder days, I don't think any of the VCs through any of that time did not do what we wanted them to do, right? I think it was an executional series of mistakes that we did, right? So, and I actually believe that as venture capitalists, so if you look at the pre-seed, Antler's role is that of a temporary co-founder. Now, purely at pre-seed, I think you play that role where you're a temporary co-founder. The moment we, some of our companies, Kalari is literally leading some of those rounds. The moment a Kalari kind of investor or any seed investor for that matter comes, I think our role certainly diminishes because from then on, because we were at a time when this person had a lot of trust, they share stuff with us almost like a temporary co-founder. Now, you can't do that at almost any other stage. We very deliberately hold only 9% so that we sort of, it's sort of almost because at some level it has to scale like the YC. And there, what we have seen is that founders at a variety of stages, but especially pre-seed, have only 4 or 5 needs. One, they want everyone wants capital because that's something that obviously everyone wants. Second is some of them want co-founders. Third is people want some level of tech help, either through a co-founder or even if let's say 2 co-founders are there but they don't have a tech background, they need some help to build.